Good morning and welcome back. We're on day 209 of our Bible studies, and we're looking at the ministry of the prophets at the moment, and particularly the prophets Isaiah and Jeremiah. Right now we're looking at Isaiah chapter 38, verses 9 to 20, and we can see how close Isaiah, this early man who his name probably was Isaiah, how close he was to the nation's leaders. This concerns an illness on the part of the king, and Isaiah's part in healing it, and the king's thankfulness for that. Isaiah 38, verses 9 to 20. After King Hezekiah recovered from his illness, he sat down to write this hymn of praise. I thought that I was going to die in my prime. I thought that there was little chance I would live out all my days. I wouldn't see Yahweh again or anyone else. Like cloth cut off from the loom or a tent being taken down, I thought that God was finishing me off. I was up all night, crying out in pain. I felt like a lion was grinding my bones. I really thought that God had it in for me. My voice was thin and weak, like a dove cooing. My eyes grew tired from looking up to heaven. Yahweh, rescue me from all this trouble. I had to admit Yahweh had done this to me, and I lay awake thinking bitter thoughts. Then I said, Yahweh, I will live just for you. Heal me and I will survive. My bitterness will become peace. In all that danger, you loved me and forgave me. Dead people can't praise you or trust you, but the living can, and so can I. Parents tell their offspring about your faithfulness. Yahweh, you have healed me. So let us play our harps and sing praises to you. Let us sing praises to you in your temple as long as we live. Towards the end of the Assyrian crisis, during the reign of Hezekiah, that was 716 to 687 BC, we have this little window into the close relationship between the prophet and the king. Isaiah was called to what both he and the king assumed was the king's deathbed, and the prophet properly advised the king to prepare himself for the inevitable. The king immediately turned his face to the wall and prayed to God in his own defense, saying that he had always been faithful and obedient, and then he burst into bitter tears. At which point, Isaiah must have left, but on his way out, he felt that God, having heard the prayer and seen the tears of the king, had a new message for the king. He was to be given 15 more years, and Assyria would be repulsed. He was given a sign that seems incomprehensible to us, that the shadow on the sundial would move back 10 minutes, though the Hebrew words are unclear and could easily mean something else to do with shadows and steps. Anyway, Isaiah prescribed a poultice to draw out the pus from the boil that had appeared on the king. The king did recover, and he allegedly wrote this song, and the tides of history turned from favouring Assyria to favouring Babylon, which then led to the next part of the story. For me, the importance of today's episode is not so much the writing of the song, which is a typical piece of Jewish lyrical poetry, just the kind of thing anyone who had recovered from a serious illness might have recited when they went to the temple to offer a thanksgiving sacrifice, so much as the intimacy of the relationship between the prophet and the king. It is touching that Isaiah's advice was responded to with prayers and tears. It is moving to read how Isaiah felt a change in God's attitude towards the oppressed and despondent king. how practical Isaiah was in suggesting that poultice, which would have removed a lot of the king's physical pain, and how thoughtful of Isaiah's final editors that they chose to attribute such heartfelt words of thanksgiving to the recovering king on account of his faithfulness. It's a good reading. Tomorrow we move forward in time, and we find ourselves with the exiles in Babylon. And we see how the Isaiah who was with them was able to help them to interpret their predicament and to at least begin to find some consolation in it. I'll see you tomorrow.